like, you can call Jeff now at 556-9696.
All right, welcome back. Another guest segment right now, and very pleased to welcome to the Ringside program. Stephen Abboud is with us, president of PhaZZer US. And Stephen, welcome, sir. How are you? Good morning.
Good, Jeff. How you doing?
Great. So many issues we want to get into with you here, but let's talk a little bit about what is PhaZZer. What is it?
The PhaZZer is a stun gun type device. They're defensive devices that use a high-frequency electrical pulse to basically take control or immobilize a suspect or a perpetrator.
So for some people that might be uncomfortable with a firearm, this could be a good alternative for them, right?
No, it's a great alternative to a firearm. You know, and there's obviously certain situations where, you know, you don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight, obviously. But
yes.
But as an alternative, you know, with similar stopping power, but without the downside risk of taking a life.
You know, it seems to me to be sort of an interim between pepper spray and a firearm, sort of.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably, you know, just one step down the scale from a firearm as far as effectiveness.
Right. So tell our listeners, if you could, Steve, how they work.
Well, it's a handgun-style device that you insert a cartridge in, and the electric charge, when you deactivate the safety and pull the trigger, puts a charge into the cartridge, which causes the electric match to implode, which drives the nitrogen container into the puncture knife and propels the darts. The darts are on a thin copper filament wire that is extended. And when it's deployed at about 155 feet per second, the darts stick into the target and put the charge through the body.
Now, there are other manufacturers, other alternatives there in the market. What makes PhaZZer stand out?
Well, you know, yeah, there's primarily one competitor that dominates the market, but the PhaZZer, I'd say that what makes PhaZZer stand out is we've got, we're the first to introduce a specialized safety circuit, which follows the recommendations of the American Academy of Emergency Medicine and other medical studies that have been done. Due to there's been quite a few deaths that were proximate to the use of those TASER devices of our competitor. And what we did was study the medical studies and came out with a product that has a patented, we patented the technology that in combination with the waveform, it shuts the circuit down based on the recommendations of the AAEM, which more or less suggests you should not deploy these things into the human body for beyond a 15-second period of time. So it shuts down every 5 seconds, whether you're pressing on the trigger or not, giving a half-second pause to see if you need to use additional force. And you can do that up to 3 times where it shuts down completely after 15 seconds, which is within that 15-second time period. Now, if you do have to override the safety, you can do that and deploy it 3 more times because the darts are stuck into the target. So, you can pull the trigger continuously, obviously, and every 5 seconds it'll put that 5-second jolt through the body.
Stephen Abboud with us, and we're talking about something really exciting, his product. He's president of PhaZZer US, and, you know, when you're looking at this, training comes to mind. Does your company prepare the public with training, Steve?
Yeah, law enforcement is the primary market, but, our professional-grade weapons are sold to civilians as well. And while the law enforcement officers do have to go through a training certification process, pretty much by law, I think, and every department across America requires that because they don't want to see them excessively used in their equipment. It's very important that they're trained. But as far as civilian, they're not required to take training but we strongly encourage them to take training so they can, learn how to effectively use these devices, as an alternative to a firearm, so that they can most efficiently use them and not misuse them, so to speak.
Does PhaZZer come with practice darts and cartridges? And if so, how do they work?
Yeah, there's packages that are basic sets. There's packages that are complete sets with three rounds of ammunition with them. But yeah, we do have training dart cartridges. We also have training alligator clips, which can be used over and over again, so it doesn't continuously cost you additional funds to if you want to feel the experience of the neuromuscular lockup that this causes to the body when you're shot with it. But the training cartridges, primarily the ones that shoot the darts out, they have a more or less a fishing line attached to the darts, so they don't conduct the energy into the target, but they're primarily for point of aim as it relates to the laser. So you aim the laser at the target, pull the trigger, it'll shoot the darts out, and the trajectory is a 3-degree angle above and a 3-degree angle below. So it's a 6-degree total angle of exit out of that combustion chamber. And obviously, the farther you are back, the more those darts spread. So you want to be, most deployments, at least in law enforcement, take place between 8 and 13 feet, and that seems to be the most effective range of these deployments. Not that
so what should
go ahead.
So what should we aim against when we're practicing?
Well, there's carbon targets that are sold. It's best to do it into a carbon target because it absorbs the energy. So it'll sound just like if you shot it at a human being and it connected with both darts to complete the circuit. It'll give the same sound off, which is a much quieter sound. Because electricity will always seek the path of least resistance when it's deployed. So.
We're visiting with Stephen Abboud. PhaZZer US is the company he's president of, and PhaZZer is a stun gun. It's a line of conductive electrical weapon devices that are up to half the cost of today's standard taser, and 100% non-lethal. That's why PhaZZer is fast becoming the go-to solution for police departments across the country. How many police departments are you working with, Steve?
Well, we sell, I think we have in use about 300 departments across America.
Wow.
But there's a lot of them, Jeff.
Yeah.
There's like 17,000 of them, and you got to deal with each one individually because they all have their independent budgets.
Mm-hmm. And their own needs and their own particular issues. And what about laws and permits? So like here in Louisiana, would there be any special permits required to use a PhaZZer in our state?
I would have to check the local ordinances because you got several levels, of government. You got local, you got county, you got state, and federal. But at the federal level, these are classified by the ATF technology chief as non-firearm devices because they use a nitrogen propulsion system rather than gunpowder. So there's no, whereas with a firearm, obviously you have to have a permit and a license. So you can circumvent that at the federal level. Most states do not have regulatory encumbrances on these devices because the feds have okayed them. But some do have restrictions and requirements. I don't think that Louisiana has any, but it'd be best to check your local ordinances if you're going to be carrying them in a certain city or whatever out there.
Right. And we've been talking about different pieces of legislation that are going to be introduced concerning firearms in this upcoming session. What is the safety record of PhaZZers?
Well, we have zero deaths on record, and that compares, to our primary competitor. They have, and these are proximate deaths to the use of these weapons. And there's about 1,100 deaths that were proximate to the use of that weapon system. But you got to keep in mind, you can hold that trigger in of their weapon, and as long as you're holding that trigger in, it will continuously put that charge into the body. So,
right.
Cases where, and this is where the safety circuit comes into play, and this is why it's so important. The officer is not, looking at his stopwatch or counting the seconds in the heat of the moment. I mean, they were trained to hold that trigger in until they gained compliance of the subject. So, in a lot of cases, it's not law enforcement's fault, but rather the training in combination with a lack of a preventative, like a safety circuit, to prevent that weapon from continuously running into the body. And with the medical studies showing that 15 seconds is, the maximum exposure you should give to the human body so you don't overexpose them to the circuit, it stands to reason, and that's why we came up with the safety shutdown circuit that shuts it down every 5 seconds and completely in 15 seconds, so it stays within that recommendation.
Now, what if you've got someone coming at you and is a big guy and someone who is very threatening, and are we sure that this PhaZZer stun gun will stop that person?
Well, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So the greater, okay. I mean, honestly, it works on the neuromuscular system. So
right.
The more muscular the person, the bigger the person, the harder they fall, and that's really true in this case. So it stops them dead in their tracks. It locks up pretty much every muscle in their body instantly in about a 10th or a 20th of a second. You have no command over your muscles anymore. I mean, you're completely aware of what's going on, but you can't send a to your muscles from your brain to move. I mean, I did it to myself after we really perfected the circuit by clipping on those alligator clips and activated the weapon in my hand, and I pulled the trigger to see if I could shut it down. I could not even command my thumb to just switch it off. And you want to do
how long were you impacted? How long does it last?
It lasts 5 seconds before it does the initial shutdown. And you have to wait a half a second pause to assess whether or not you need to pull that trigger again. And obviously, if they're not complying at that point, well, yeah, you should pull the trigger again. If they're begging for mercy, well, there's no reason to pull the trigger again. You've got them under control. So.
And then how long before they recover their ability to move around and become a threat?
Well, it depends on the person, but in most cases, you get your wits about you in 30 seconds.
But that gives you time to escape. That gives you time to get into the car or wherever you need to go.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and if you've got to pull it again, you can keep it on them until law enforcement comes on the scene and just, warn them that I'm going to pull the trigger again if you do anything threatening. Just stay still. So in most cases, just pointing the laser at someone is enough to deter them from bothering you.
And finally, Steve, is this something that elderly folks can use? Women, men? I mean, are these easy to utilize to handle?
We designed these with simplicity of use. Like the revolver of the Old West: point, aim, and fire. Okay, there doesn't need to be complications. You activate it, you aim at the target with the laser. We set it up so it's a center body mass aim. So aim right to the center of the body despite distance. And the darts, one will go above, one below the laser sight. And if it's within that range of 8 to 13 feet, the likelihood of missing is it's almost just nil. But I do think that elderly, it doesn't matter as long as they've had opportunities to deploy it into a target, so they understand how it lines up with that laser. It makes it a pretty natural act.
Steve, for our listeners out there that either want to purchase one of these or get more information, how can they do that?
Well, if they can certainly call us on our 800 number, which they can get on the website at PhaZZer.com, which is PhaZZer.com, and or PhaZZerUS.com. and they can order right over the website. There's videos on there that they can watch. They can call us on the phone and ask questions. There's material there that they can read to understand more about the product. But
Very
you know,
good.
it's something that you know, provides an excellent alternative. It doesn't replace a firearm. I want to make that clear, because there's times when firearm is needed. But it certainly is an excellent alternative, and it's set at a very reasonable price. And I think that. Go ahead.
We've got an area with a high crime rate, and people are looking at things that they can do, and they should look at all their different alternatives. The one thing they can't do is do nothing. So this is something they should certainly investigate. And Steve, we appreciate you coming on and providing this information, and congratulations on the success of your product. And we'll link to it where people can go on there and encourage people to check it out, call, get more information, and consider this with this situation that we face here in New Orleans, where crime is certainly on the increase. Steve, thanks for being with us.
Oh, I appreciate your time, Jeff, and your listeners.